He tried to force me to pay the overdue payments on his house, and I made him regret it. The email arrived on a Sunday morning. Subject line, urgent, need your help. I opened it, read the first line, felt my blood pressure spike. Rebecca, I'm 3 months behind on my mortgage. The bank is threatening foreclosure. I need you to cover the payments until I get back on my feet. It's only $15,000. You can afford it. Only $15,000. Like that was pocket change. Like I owed him something. Like his financial crisis was my responsibility. The email was from my ex-husband, Daniel. We'd been divorced for 5 years. Had minimal contact. Split everything in the divorce. Clean break. Or so I thought. Now he wanted $15,000 to save the house. The house that was solely in his name. The house I had zero legal obligation to. The house that was his problem, not mine. I typed back, no. His response came within minutes. You're really going to let me lose my house? After everything we had together? Everything we had ended 5 years ago. Your mortgage isn't my problem. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. Please, Rebecca, I'll pay you back. No. Over the next 2 weeks, the emails escalated. Then the phone calls. Then the texts. Daniel wasn't asking anymore. He was demanding, guilting, manipulating. You make twice what I make. $15,000 is nothing to you. If I lose this house, I'll be homeless. Is that what you want? After 10 years of marriage, you owe me this. I blocked his number. He started calling from different numbers. I blocked those too. He showed up at my work. Security escorted him out. Daniel wasn't going to stop. He'd decided I was responsible for saving him, and he was going to make my life hell until I paid. So I did something he didn't expect. Something that didn't just stop his harassment. Something that made him regret ever asking me for a single dollar. I bought his house, at the foreclosure auction, for half what he owed, and then I made sure he understood exactly what happened when you try to force someone to save you. My name is Rebecca Morgan. I'm 43 years old. 2 months ago, my ex-husband tried to force me to pay $15,000 to save his house. Today, I own that house. He's been evicted. And he learned that pressuring someone doesn't get you help. It gets you destroyed. This is the story of financial manipulation, relentless harassment, and the perfect revenge that came from letting someone's desperation work against them. Let me start at the beginning, so you understand exactly how Daniel went from begging for help to losing everything. Daniel and I were married for 10 years, met in our late 20s, got married at 30, typical suburban life, 2 incomes, nice house. Happy enough. Then things changed. Daniel got laid off from his corporate job, struggled to find work at the same level, took a position with half his previous salary, started resenting his reduced income, started resenting me for still making good money. Must be nice, he'd say when I came home from work, having a career that's going well while mine fell apart. I'm sorry you're struggling, but I'm not the enemy here. Aren't you? You could help more financially, cover more of the bills. I already cover 60%. How much more do you want? Whatever it takes to make us equal again. But it wasn't about equality. It was about control. About him feeling diminished and needing to bring me down to his level. After 2 years of this dynamic, of him resenting my success, demanding I subsidize his life more and more, treating me like an ATM instead of a partner, I filed for divorce. Daniel was shocked. You're leaving me because I lost my job? I'm leaving you because you've spent 2 years punishing me for still having mine. The divorce was contentious. He wanted alimony, claimed he'd sacrificed his career for our marriage. The judge disagreed, found no evidence of career sacrifice, ruled no alimony. We split assets 50-50. I got the house we'd shared, paid him his equity. He used that money as a down payment on a smaller house. We both moved on, or I thought we had. For 5 years, minimal contact. Occasional texts about administrative things. Otherwise, separate lives. Then came that Sunday email, the demand for $15,000, the beginning of 2 months of hell. After I said no the first time, Daniel changed tactics. Stopped asking, started demanding. I looked into it. You make $70,000 a year more than me. $15,000 is nothing. You should be helping me. Should be? Based on what? We're divorced. Your finances aren't my responsibility. Based on the fact that I was laid off and you got promoted. Life isn't fair. You should help balance that. Life isn't fair. And I'm not your personal wealth redistribution system. Figure out your mortgage yourself. He tried different approaches. Guilt, anger, manipulation, threats. What will people think when they find out you let me become homeless? I didn't make you homeless. Your inability to pay your mortgage did. I'll tell everyone how selfish you are. How you abandoned me when I needed help. Go ahead, tell them I refused to pay your mortgage 5 years after our divorce. See if they find that unreasonable. He escalated, started posting on social media, vague posts about people who have money but refuse to help those in need. Our mutual friends saw them. Some reached out. Rebecca, is Daniel okay? His posts seem concerning. Daniel is fine. He wants me to pay his mortgage. I said no. He's trying to create social pressure. Some friends supported me. That's ridiculous. You're divorced. You don't owe him anything. Others were more ambiguous. I mean, if you can afford to help. The social media posts got more direct. My ex-wife makes over 6 figures but won't help me avoid foreclosure. Guess money changes people. I didn't respond publicly. Didn't engage. Just documented everything. Because I was already forming a plan. A plan Daniel wouldn't see coming until it was too late. 6 weeks after the initial email, Daniel showed up at my apartment. Buzzed my intercom. I didn't let him up. Rebecca, I know you're there. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Leave or I'm calling the police. I just need 5 minutes. Please. You have 30 seconds to leave my property. He stayed. I called the police. They arrived. Told him to leave. He argued. They threatened to arrest him for trespassing. He finally left. That night, he sent an email. Subject: This is your last chance. Rebecca, the foreclosure auction is scheduled for 3 weeks from now. If you don't help me, I lose everything. My house, my stability, everything I built after our divorce. You have the power to prevent that. Are you really going to let it happen? After everything we meant to each other? I'm begging you. $15,000. I'll sign a promissory note. Whatever you need. Just help me. I read the email, noted the auction date, started researching. Foreclosure auctions are public. Anyone can bid. Properties often sell for less than market value, sometimes significantly less. Daniel's house, a 3-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, was probably worth $200,000. He owed about $160,000 on the mortgage. 3 months behind meant he owed roughly $6,000 in missed payments, plus penalties and fees. The minimum bid at auction would be the total debt, probably around $170,000 with all the fees included. But foreclosure auctions don't always get bidders. Sometimes properties go for the minimum, sometimes less if the bank is motivated to move it. I had the money. I'd been saving aggressively for 5 years, had $80,000 in liquid savings, could get a mortgage for the rest if needed. The question was, did I want to buy my ex-husband's house out from under him? I thought about 2 months of harassment, 2 months of demands and guilt and manipulation and threats, 2 months of Daniel deciding I owed him something I didn't owe him. Yes, I wanted to buy his house. I wanted him to know what happened when you try to force someone to save you, when you decide someone else's money belongs to you, when you won't take no for an answer. 2 weeks before the auction, Daniel sent another email. I can't believe you're really doing this. Letting me lose everything. I thought you were better than this. I didn't respond. Just waited. 1 week before the auction, he sent, Please, I'm desperate. I'll do anything. Just help me. I didn't respond. Just prepared. 3 days before the auction, he sent, Fine, don't help. But know that this is on you. When I'm homeless, remember you could have prevented it. The morning of the auction, I dressed professionally. Brought a cashier's check for $20,000, enough to cover a deposit if my bid won. Drove to the courthouse. The auction was in a large room, maybe 30 people, some investors, some flippers, some individuals looking for deals. And me. The auctioneer started. Listed properties. Daniel's came up third. 127 Maple Street. 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Starting bid $170,000. No one bid. People looked at their papers. Too much for the neighborhood. Not enough profit margin. $160,000. The auctioneer dropped the price. Still no bids. 150,000. I raised my hand. 150,000. The auctioneer nodded. We have 150,000. Do I hear 160? Silence. No other bidders. 30 seconds passed. Going once at 150? Going twice? Sold to bidder 37 for 150,000. Just like that, I owned Daniel's house. For 90,000 less than he owed. Less than market value. A steal, actually. Good investment even without the satisfaction factor. I paid the deposit, filed the paperwork. The eviction process would start automatically. Daniel had 30 days to vacate. I went home, sent him an email. Subject: regarding 127 Maple Street. Daniel, I want to inform you that I purchased your house at foreclosure auction today for $150,000. The eviction process has begun. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. All belongings left after that date will be disposed of. I'm also filing for a restraining order based on your harassment over the past 2 months. You are not to contact me, approach me, or attempt to engage with me in any way. All future communication regarding the property must go through my attorney. You asked me for help. I said no. You didn't accept that answer. You harassed me, pressured me, tried to guilt and manipulate me into giving you money. This is the consequence of that behavior. You could have handled your foreclosure privately, could have accepted my no and moved on. Instead, you made it my problem, so I made it my solution. The house is mine now. Do not contact me again. Rebecca. I hit send, turned off my phone, and waited for the fallout. If you've ever been financially pressured by someone who thinks they're entitled to your money, had someone demand, guilt, or harass you into paying for their problems, you know this anger. This need to make them understand you're not a bank. Share your experience in the comments. And if these stories of financial boundaries and consequences resonate with you, please subscribe to Lindsay Stories. Daniel's response came the next morning. I only saw it because my attorney forwarded it to me. I'd already blocked Daniel everywhere. The email was unhinged. All caps. Accusations. Threats. You stole my house! You're a monster! I'll sue you! I'll tell everyone what you did! You'll regret this! My attorney responded on my behalf. Ms. Morgan purchased the property legally at a public auction. She did not steal anything. Your continued harassment will result in legal action. Any further contact will be forwarded to police. You have 30 days to vacate. That timeline is non-negotiable. Daniel tried calling. My phone was blocked. He tried showing up at my work. Security had his photo now, turned him away. He tried contacting mutual friends to tell his side. Our friend Sarah called me. Rebecca, Daniel says you bought his house at auction. Is that true? Yes. Why would you do that? Because he spent 2 months harassing me to pay his mortgage. I said no. He didn't accept no. So I removed the problem by buying the house myself. That seems extreme. Does it? He demanded $15,000 from me, called me selfish for refusing, posted about me on social media, showed up at my home and workplace, filed a legal purchase at a public auction. Which of us was extreme? She was quiet. When you put it that way, Sarah, I don't need $15,000 to save someone else's house. But I do have $80,000 in savings. I can buy a house at auction if I want, and I wanted this one. Because Daniel needed to learn that pressuring people doesn't work. What's going to happen to him? He'll be evicted in 30 days. He'll find somewhere else to live. He'll survive. But he'll never forget what happened when he tried to force me to solve his problems. 2 weeks after the auction, Daniel filed an emergency motion, tried to stop the eviction, claimed I'd acted maliciously, that I'd deliberately bought the house to hurt him. The judge reviewed the case, reviewed my attorney's documentation of Daniel's harassment, the emails, the police report from when he trespassed at my apartment, the social media posts. Mr. Harrison, did you attempt to pressure Ms. Morgan into paying your mortgage? I asked for help. She could afford it. Did you accept her refusal? She was being unreasonable. Answer the question. Did you accept her refusal? No, but did you show up at her workplace and residence after she declined? I needed to explain. Mr. Harrison, you harassed your ex-wife for 2 months trying to force her to pay your debt. She declined repeatedly. She then legally purchased your property at a public foreclosure auction. There's no malice in a legal purchase. Your motion is denied. The eviction stands. Daniel tried to appeal. His attorney advised against it. You don't have grounds. You lost the house to foreclosure. Someone bought it legally. The fact that it was your ex-wife doesn't change the legality. 28 days after the auction, Daniel moved out, left the place in decent condition, surprisingly, took his belongings, turned in the keys, didn't try to damage anything out of spite. My attorney handled the key exchange, sent me photos confirming the property was empty. I hired cleaners, had the locks changed, and just like that, I owned a rental property that had cost me $150,000 for a house worth $200,000 minimum, $50,000 profit on paper, immediate equity, good rental potential, and the satisfaction of knowing Daniel would never forget what happened when he tried to force me to save him. 1 month after Daniel moved out, I got a message from a mutual friend. Rebecca, Daniel's homeless. He's living in his car. Don't you feel guilty? Is he actually homeless, or is he between apartments? He's in his car. He can't afford rent. That's unfortunate, but it's not my problem. He had months to prepare for foreclosure, had months to find cheaper housing, had months to downsize or move in with family. He chose to spend that time harassing me instead of preparing for the inevitable. But you could help him. I could, but I won't. He tried to force me to pay his mortgage. I said no. He escalated. This is the consequence, not my guilt to carry. The friend stopped messaging, probably thought I was heartless. I didn't care. Daniel's housing situation wasn't my responsibility. Never had been. Never would be. 2 months after the eviction, Daniel sent one final email. It got past my blocks because he sent it from a new address. Rebecca, I hope you're happy. I've lost everything. My house, my stability, my dignity, all because you refuse to help. I know you think I deserved this, that I pushed too hard. Maybe I did, but I was desperate. The bank wasn't giving me options. I couldn't refinance, couldn't get a loan. You were my only option. I thought you'd help. We were married for 10 years. Doesn't that count for anything? I guess it doesn't. I guess once the divorce was final, I became nothing to you. Just another person asking for money. You won. You got your revenge. I hope it was worth it. Daniel. I forwarded the email to my attorney. Document this. If he continues contact, we pursue the restraining order. But I also felt something reading that email. Not guilt, not satisfaction, just finality. This chapter was done. Daniel had learned. Whether he admitted it or not, he'd learned that pressuring people doesn't work, that desperation doesn't entitle you to someone else's money, that trying to force help gets you consequences instead. 3 months after the eviction, I listed the house as a rental. Had it rented within 2 weeks. $800 profit after mortgage and expenses. Nice passive income from a house I'd bought at auction because my ex-husband wouldn't take no for an answer. 6 months after the auction, Sarah, the friend who'd questioned my actions, called me. Rebecca, I owe you an apology. For what? For judging you about the house. Daniel's been staying with friends, couch surfing, and everywhere he goes he tells the same story. How you ruined him, how you stole his house, how you're heartless. But he always leaves out the part where he harassed you for months, where he wouldn't accept no, where he made it impossible for you to help even if you'd wanted to. He's rewriting history. Exactly. And I believed him at first, because his version made you the villain. But then I talked to other people, heard about the emails, the showing up at your work, the social media posts, and I realized you weren't heartless. You were protecting yourself. Thank you for seeing that. What you did was extreme, but so is what he did. He backed you into a corner. You found the only exit that protected you completely. I get it now. I appreciate that. For what it's worth, Daniel's found an apartment now. Small place. He's managing. But he's bitter. Really bitter. He can be bitter. Doesn't change anything. No, it doesn't. 1 year after the auction, I ran into Daniel at a grocery store. First time seeing him in person since before the eviction. He looked tired, older, worn down. He saw me, froze. For a moment I thought he might approach, might say something, but he just turned and walked the other way. Good. Nothing to say. Nothing to resolve. Just two people who used to know each other, now strangers shopping in the same store. I finished my shopping, went home, and didn't think about Daniel for the rest of the day, because that's what moving on looks like. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just indifference. He'd tried to force me to save him. I'd bought his house instead. We'd both moved forward. End of story. 18 months after the auction, my tenant renewed the lease. Asked if I'd consider selling. I love this house. If you're ever interested in selling, I'd like to buy it. I considered. The house had appreciated, probably worth $220 now. $70,000 gain in 18 months. Good return. But the rental income was nice. And there was something satisfying about still owning the house Daniel had tried to guilt me into saving. A permanent reminder of what happened when someone wouldn't take no for an answer. I'll think about it, I told the tenant. For now, I'm happy with the rental arrangement. Fair enough. Just wanted you to know I'm interested if you change your mind. 2 years after the auction, I received a LinkedIn message from Daniel. Professional, formal, distant. Rebecca, I wanted to reach out and apologize for my behavior 2 years ago. I was in a desperate situation and handled it poorly. I shouldn't have pressured you. I shouldn't have harassed you. I'm sorry for everything I put you through. I'm in a better place now and can see how wrong I was. I hope you're doing well. Daniel. I stared at the message. Surprised he'd reached out. More surprised he'd apologized. Actually apologized. Not the non-apology version where he blamed circumstances. I typed a response. I appreciate the apology. I hope you've found stability. Take care. Short, civil, final. Because what else was there to say? He'd learned his lesson. I'd moved on. Done. But part of me wondered, did he really understand? Did he truly grasp that the house foreclosure wasn't the punishment? The punishment was him creating a situation where I had to buy the house to protect myself, where his harassment made helping impossible even if I'd been inclined to help. He'd burned a bridge, not by asking for help, but by refusing to accept no, by turning a request into a demand, by making me the villain in his story when I was just someone with boundaries. That's what cost him the house. Not my cruelty, his entitlement. My name is Rebecca Morgan. I'm 45 years old now. 2 years ago, my ex-husband tried to force me to pay $15,000 to save his house. Instead, I bought that house at foreclosure auction for $150,000, evicted him, rented it out, made it a profitable investment. He tried to make his problem my responsibility. I made his problem my asset. That's what he didn't expect. That refusing to help didn't mean doing nothing, that I had options he hadn't considered, that the power dynamic he thought he controlled could flip completely. He wanted $15,000 to save his house. I spent $150,000 to take it, and somehow, I won. Share this if you've ever been financially pressured by someone who wouldn't take no. Comment if you've had to enforce harsh boundaries. Subscribe to Lindsay's Stories for more stories of financial manipulation and perfect boundaries. He tried to force me to pay. I made him regret it. And I've never looked back. That's everything. What I haven't fully explained yet is what those 2 months of pressure actually felt like. The daily harassment, the constant guilt, the way Daniel weaponized our shared history to try to make me responsible for his choices. Week 1 started with polite requests. I know this is awkward, but I'm in a tough spot. Could you help me out temporarily? By week 2, the tone shifted. I really need an answer. The bank is sending letters. This is getting serious. Week 3, why haven't you responded? Are you seriously going to ignore me when I need help? Week 4, I've calculated your salary. You make $115,000 a year. $15,000 is 13% of your annual income. You can absolutely afford this. That's when I realized Daniel had researched my finances, had looked up salary information for my position, had calculated exactly how much he thought I could afford to give him. Not loan, give. Because despite his promises to pay me back, he had no plan, no timeline, no collateral, just a vague promise that someday, when things got better, he'd repay me. Week 5 escalated to emotional manipulation. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Every time my phone rings, I think it's the bank calling to schedule the auction. You could end this stress with one decision. How can you live with yourself knowing you have the power to help and you're choosing not to? That email made me so angry I had to step away from my computer, had to take a walk, had to process the audacity. Because here's what Daniel was really saying. My stress is your responsibility. My poor decisions are your problem. My inability to manage my finances is your fault for not fixing them. No, absolutely not. Week 6 brought the social media campaign. Vague posting about people who have money but no compassion, about ex-spouses who abandon you when you need them most, about realizing who people really are when times get tough. Our mutual friends noticed. Some sent supportive messages. Ignore him. You don't owe him anything. Others were more judgmental. Can't you just help him? He seems really desperate. The judgmental ones didn't know the full story, didn't know about the harassment, the entitlement, the refusal to accept no. They just saw Daniel's public pain and my private refusal. I thought about posting my side, explaining the 2 months of pressure, the demands, the manipulation, but I didn't, because engaging would just fuel Daniel's narrative, would give him attention and ammunition. Better to stay silent publicly, document everything privately, and wait for the opportunity I knew was coming. Week 7. I'm filing for bankruptcy. My credit will be destroyed. I'll never be able to buy another house. This will follow me for 7 years. All because you won't help. Again with the blame. As if I had forced him into foreclosure. As if I'd made him buy a house he couldn't afford. As if his financial situation was somehow my fault. I replied to that one. Couldn't help myself. Daniel, you're not filing for bankruptcy because I won't help. You're filing because you can't afford your mortgage. Those are 2 separate things. Your financial situation existed before you contacted me. My refusal didn't create it. It just means I won't fix it for you. Take responsibility. His response. Easy for you to say when you're not the one losing everything. Week 8 brought the workplace visits. First time, reception called me. There's a Daniel Harrison here to see you? Tell him I'm unavailable. He says it's urgent, that you'll want to talk to him. I don't. Please ask him to leave. Daniel refused to leave. Insisted on waiting in the lobby. Security eventually escorted him out after 40 minutes of him sitting there refusing to go. Second visit, 3 days later. This time, Daniel tried to follow me to my car in the parking garage. I saw him, turned around, went back inside, called security. They escorted him out again and documented both incidents. That's when I filed the trespassing report with police, created an official record of his harassment, established a paper trail. Because I was already thinking ahead, already knowing that if I bought the house at auction, Daniel would claim I'd acted maliciously, would try to paint me as vindictive. The documented harassment would show I'd acted in self-defense, had protected myself from someone who wouldn't accept boundaries. Week 9. My attorney says if I can come up with the missed payments plus fees, I can stop the foreclosure. It's not $15,000 anymore. It's $18,000 with the late fees and penalties. But it would save the house. Please, Rebecca. One last time. I'm begging. $18,000. $3,000 more than the original request. Because penalties compound. Because missed payments add up. Because Daniel had spent 2 months trying to guilt me instead of trying to find solutions. I didn't respond. Just added the email to my documentation folder. Labeled Evidence of Harassment, Week 9. Week 10 brought family involvement. Daniel's mother called me. We'd never been close, but she'd always been polite during the marriage. Rebecca, Daniel tells me he's asked you for help. He has. I declined. I understand you're divorced, but he's in real trouble. Isn't there anything you can do? There is. I could give him $18,000, but I'm choosing not to. That's my right. It seems cruel. You have the money. Having money doesn't obligate me to give it away. Daniel made choices that led to foreclosure. Those are his consequences to handle. He says you're being vindictive, that you're punishing him for the divorce. I'm not punishing him. I'm declining to rescue him. There's a difference. She hung up frustrated. Probably told Daniel I was heartless, which is fine. I'd rather be heartless than be an ATM for an ex-husband who wouldn't take no for an answer. Week 11. The auction is scheduled for 2 weeks from today. This is really happening. You still have time to stop it. You still have power to save me. Are you really going to let this happen? Let this happen. As if I was responsible. as if my inaction was causing his foreclosure rather than his own inability to pay his mortgage. That's the thing about financial manipulation. It tries to make you responsible for someone else's choices, tries to make their problems your obligation, tries to transfer the guilt from their bad decisions to your refusal to fix them. I wasn't falling for it. Wasn't taking responsibility for Daniel's foreclosure. Wasn't letting him rewrite the narrative to make me the villain. The villain was foreclosure, the system, the economy, bad financial planning, not me. Week 12, the final week before the auction, Daniel's emails became frantic. 3 per day, then 5, then 10. The auction is in 6 days, please. 5 days, Rebecca, please. 4 days, I'm going to lose everything. 3 days, this is your last chance to help. 2 days. I can't believe you're really doing this. Tomorrow. Auction is tomorrow. You've made your choice. I read each one, felt nothing. No guilt, no hesitation, no doubt. Because Daniel had spent 12 weeks trying to make me responsible for his crisis, had harassed me, pressured me, guilted me, showed up at my work, weaponized mutual friends, involved his family. He'd done everything except accept my no. And that was his mistake. The morning of the auction, I woke up calm, had breakfast, reviewed the property details one more time, checked comparable sales in the neighborhood, confirmed my financial planning. I could afford this. Had the cash for the deposit, could get a mortgage for the balance. The numbers worked. And even if they hadn't, even if buying the house was a financial stretch, I'd have done it anyway. Because Daniel needed to learn what happened when you tried to force someone to save you. At the courthouse, the auction room was surprisingly quiet. People speaking in low voices, reviewing paperwork, waiting for their properties to come up. I sat near the back, watched the first 2 properties sell. One had multiple bidders, young couple bidding against an investor. The investor won with a cash offer. The couple looked disappointed but nodded politely. Then Daniel's property came up. 127 Maple Street. The auctioneer read the details. Starting bid $170,000. The total debt with fees and penalties. I waited, watching for other bidders, seeing if anyone else wanted this property. Silence. Nobody moved. 30 seconds passed. The auctioneer dropped the price. $160,000. Still nothing. The property wasn't attracting bidders. Either people had researched and found issues, or the starting price was too high for the neighborhood. $150,000, the auctioneer called. Last price drop before pulling the property. I raised my paddle. $150. The auctioneer nodded, looked around the room. We have $150. Do I hear $160? Silence. Nobody else bidding, nobody competing, just me and my raised paddle. Going once, going twice. Sold to bidder 37 for $150,000. The hammer came down. Just like that, I owned Daniel's house. For $20,000 less than he owed the bank. $40,000 less than the starting bid. $50,000 less than market value. It was a steal. Literally and figuratively. I went to the clerk, paid my $20,000 deposit with a cashier's check, signed preliminary paperwork, was told the full closing would happen within 30 days. Until then, the eviction process would begin automatically. Daniel would be notified by the county that his house had sold, would be given official eviction notice, would have 30 days to remove himself and his belongings. I drove home, sat in my apartment, felt a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. This wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. I hadn't destroyed Daniel, hadn't hurt him beyond what he'd done to himself by defaulting on his mortgage, but I had removed his power. Had taken the thing he'd been trying to use as leverage and made it mine, had shown him that pressuring someone doesn't work. It just reveals your vulnerability. The email I sent Daniel that evening was carefully worded. My attorney had reviewed it. Daniel, I purchased your house at foreclosure auction today for $150,000. The eviction process has begun. You have 30 days to vacate. Short, factual, no emotion, no explanation, just information. His response came within minutes. All caps. Rage. Disbelief. You bought my house? You stole my house. This was your plan all along. You're evil. You're a monster. I'll sue you. My attorney's response was equally brief. Ms. Morgan purchased the property legally at a public auction. This is not theft. Your harassment will be documented. Vacate within 30 days or face formal eviction proceedings. Daniel's rage spiraled. He called my office. I'd blocked his personal numbers, but he figured out the work line. My assistant intercepted. Rebecca Morgan's office. I need to speak with Rebecca. Now. May I ask who's calling? Her ex-husband. The one whose house she stole. I'm sorry, Ms. Morgan is unavailable. I can take a message. Tell her she's going to regret this. Tell her I'm going to sue her for everything she has. Tell her she's destroyed my life. My assistant, bless her, remained professional. I'll pass along that you called. Have a good day. She came to my office after. Your ex-husband called. He was intense. Want me to block the number? Yes, please. And document the call. Include his threatening language. We're building a case for a restraining order if needed. Got it. You okay? I'm fine. He's upset. But that's not my problem. What did you do? I bought his house at a foreclosure auction after he spent 2 months trying to force me to save it. He's mad that I solved his problem in a way that benefited me instead of him. That's actually brilliant. Thank you. I thought so too. Over the next 30 days, Daniel tried every angle. Legal challenges, social media campaigns, mutual friend interventions, family pressure. His attorney filed an emergency motion to stop the eviction, claimed I'd acted in bad faith, had deliberately bought the house to hurt him. The hearing was brief. The judge reviewed our divorce decree. Clean split, no ongoing obligations. Reviewed my attorney's documentation of Daniel's harassment. Reviewed the public nature of the auction. Mr. Harrison, did you harass Ms. Morgan for 2 months trying to get her to pay your mortgage? Daniel hesitated. I asked for help. Did you show up at her workplace multiple times after being told to stop? I needed to explain the urgency. Did you involve mutual friends and family to pressure her? I was desperate. Mr. Harrison, you harassed your ex-wife extensively. She declined to help. She then legally purchased your property at a public auction. There's no bad faith here. Motion denied. Eviction stands. Daniel left the courtroom furious. Told his attorney he wanted to appeal. His attorney advised against it. You don't have grounds. She bought the property legally. You can't prove malice. An appeal will cost you money you don't have and won't change the outcome. The social media campaign was more of the same. Posts about how I'd stolen his house, how I was vindictive and cruel, how I'd destroyed him. Most people who knew the full story defended me in the comments. She bought a house at a public auction. That's not stealing. You harassed her for months. What did you expect? Take some responsibility for your own foreclosure. But some people bought Daniel's narrative. Ex-wives can be so petty. She clearly did this to hurt him. Money changes people. I didn't engage, didn't defend myself publicly. Just let Daniel vent his rage into the void while I handled the practical matters of becoming a landlord. On day 28, Daniel's attorney contacted mine. My client would like to negotiate a buyback. He's found financing. He's willing to pay $160,000 to repurchase the house. My attorney relayed the offer. What do you want to do? Decline. The house is worth $200,000 minimum. I paid $150,000. I'm not selling it back to him for $160,000 just so he can feel like he won something. You're sure? This would resolve everything cleanly. I'm sure. Daniel had months to find financing before foreclosure. He spent that time harassing me instead. I'm not rewarding that behavior by giving him a discount now. The offer was declined. Daniel's attorney didn't make a counteroffer. Probably advised Daniel that I wasn't selling at any price he could afford. On day 30, Daniel moved out. My attorney did a walkthrough with the county sheriff, documented that Daniel had removed his belongings, had left the property in acceptable condition, had turned in his keys. The house was officially mine. Clear title. No liens, no complications. Just a 3-bedroom house I'd bought for $150,000 that was worth $200,000 minimum. I hired cleaners, had the carpets replaced, painted 2 rooms, listed it for rent, had 15 applications in the first week, selected a tenant with excellent credit and stable employment, signed a year lease at $1,600 a month. After mortgage, taxes, and insurance, I cleared $800 in profit each month, $9,600 a year, on a house with $50,000 in instant equity. Daniel had tried to force me to give him $15,000. I'd spent $150,000 instead, and made money doing it. That's what he never expected, that there were options beyond helping or refusing, that I could turn his crisis into my opportunity, that his pressure would backfire so completely. 1 month after Daniel moved out, his mother called again. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Rebecca, Daniel is living in his car. Did you know that?" I didn't, but it's not my responsibility. He has nowhere to go. Can't afford rent in this city. All because you took his house. I didn't take his house. The bank foreclosed. I bought it at auction. If Daniel can't afford rent, that's because he can't manage his finances. Not because I own his former house. You could let him stay there. You own it now. You could help. Why would I do that? He spent 2 months trying to force me to pay his mortgage. Now you want me to let him live in my property? The property I own because he wouldn't take no for an answer? Just until he gets back on his feet? No, Daniel is not living in my rental property. Not for free. Not at a discount. Not at all. That chapter is closed. You're heartless. I'm boundaried. Big difference. She hung up, probably went back to Daniel and told him I'd refuse to help again, reinforcing his narrative that I was the villain. Fine. Let him think that. Didn't change the reality that I owned the house, and he didn't. 3 months after the eviction, my tenant mentioned seeing Daniel. A guy was sitting in a car outside the house yesterday, just sitting there, staring. My partner went out to ask if he needed help. He said he used to live here, that it was stolen from him, that the current owner is evil. I called my attorney. Daniel's showing up at the property, telling people I stole it. This might escalate. I'll send him a cease and desist. If he continues, we'll file for a restraining order. The cease and desist was delivered. Formal letter from my attorney. You are not to approach or enter the property at 127 Maple Street. You are not to contact the current tenants. Any further action will result in legal consequences, including restraining orders and possible charges for stalking or harassment. Daniel didn't respond, but he also stopped showing up. The tenant reported no further incidents. Whatever point Daniel had been trying to make by sitting outside his former house, he'd made it and moved on. 6 months after the auction, I received the LinkedIn apology. The message surprised me, not because I'd expected Daniel to double down on his anger, though I had, but because the apology seemed genuine. I was in a desperate situation and handled it poorly. I shouldn't have pressured you. That was accountability. Real accountability. Not, "I'm sorry you felt hurt," or "I'm sorry but I was desperate." Just acknowledgement that he'd handled things wrong. I considered not responding, leaving him on red, moving on completely. But something made me type back. Maybe curiosity about whether he'd really changed, maybe wanting closure, maybe just basic courtesy. "I appreciate the apology. I hope you found stability." His response came hours later. Brief. "I have. Small apartment. Managed to rebuild some credit. Starting over. It's hard, but I'm managing. Good luck. Thanks. And Rebecca? I get it now. Why you bought the house. It wasn't about revenge. It was about stopping me. I wouldn't stop harassing you. Buying the house was the only way to end it. I understand that now." I stared at that message. He got it. Actually understood. Not just apologizing to try to get something. Actually seeing what he'd done and why I'd responded the way I had. Yes, that's exactly it. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Really sorry. I hope the house is treating you well." It is. Good rental income. Good tenants. Worked out well. That's good. Take care. You too. And that was it. Closure. Not reconciliation. Not friendship. Just 2 people acknowledging what happened and moving forward separately. 1 year after the auction, I analyzed the investment. The house had appreciated. Property values in that neighborhood were rising. Worth about $220 now. $70,000 gain on paper. Rental income was steady. Tenant had been perfect. Always paid on time. Kept the place clean. Caused no issues. Was already talking about renewing for another year. The mortgage was being paid down by the rent. In 30 years, I'd own the property outright. Worth probably $400,000 by then, given appreciation trends. All because Daniel tried to force me to pay $15,000. All because he wouldn't accept no. All because he pushed so hard I had to find a solution that removed him from the equation entirely. Best 15,000 I never spent. Best 150 I did. My name is Rebecca Morgan. I'm 45 years old. 2 years ago, my ex-husband spent 12 weeks trying to force me to pay $15,000 to save his house from foreclosure. I said no. He escalated, harassed me, pressured me, guilted me, showed up at my workplace, weaponized mutual friends, made social media posts painting me as the villain. So I bought his house at foreclosure auction for $150,000, $50,000 less than it was worth, evicted him, rented it out, made it profitable. He wanted me to save his house. I did. For myself. That's what he didn't expect. That his pressure would backfire. That I had options he hadn't considered. That refusing to be manipulated could look like taking control completely. Share this if you've been financially pressured by an ex. Comment if you've had to make someone regret not accepting your no. Subscribe to Lindsay's Stories for more stories of financial manipulation and perfect boundaries. He tried to force me to pay. I made him regret it. And I'm still cashing his rent checks. From my tenants. In my house. That used to be his. That's everything. What I want to talk about now, what needs to be understood about financial pressure from ex-partners, is the invisible line between asking for help and demanding it, between vulnerability and manipulation, between a request and an obligation. Daniel crossed that line in week 2. Maybe earlier, maybe from the first email. Because here's the thing. If you're truly asking for help, you accept the possibility of no. You make your case. You're honest about your situation. And then you accept the answer, whatever it is. Daniel never did that. Never accepted my no. Never moved on to find other solutions. He just kept pushing, kept escalating, kept trying new tactics to make me say yes. That's not asking. That's demanding. And demands don't deserve to be met. 18 months after the auction, I spoke at a women's financial empowerment workshop. Topic: setting boundaries with family and ex-partners who want your money. I told my story. The divorce. The foreclosure. The pressure. The auction. The outcome. After the talk, multiple women approached me with similar stories. My ex wants me to co-sign a loan, won't accept my no, keeps calling. My brother says I should help with his medical bills since I make more money than him. My former in-laws think I should contribute to their grandchildren's college fund even though I'm divorced from their son. All variations on the same theme. Someone deciding that another person's financial resources were available to solve their problems. Someone refusing to accept boundaries. Someone trying to guilt or pressure their way to money they weren't entitled to. I gave them all the same advice. Document the pressure, set clear boundaries. Don't engage with emotional manipulation, and if necessary, take action that removes their ability to pressure you. One woman asked, "But what if buying his house at auction seems extreme? What if people judge me?" Let them judge. People who haven't been harassed for months don't get to decide what's extreme. You do. And if extreme action is what it takes to stop someone from making your life hell, then extreme action is appropriate. Another woman, "But I don't have the money to buy a house at auction. What if that option isn't available?" Then you find other options, restraining orders, changing phone numbers, moving if necessary. The point isn't the specific solution. The point is refusing to be pressured, refusing to let someone else's crisis become your obligation. The workshop was supposed to be 90 minutes. Ran 2 hours because so many people had questions, had stories, had variations on financial pressure they didn't know how to handle. I realized this wasn't rare. Financial manipulation from family and ex-partners was common, maybe even normal, and most people didn't know they had the right to say no, didn't know that boundaries were okay, didn't know that refusing to help wasn't cruelty, it was self-preservation. 2 years after the auction, I got a message from Daniel's sister. We'd been friendly during the marriage but hadn't spoken since the divorce. "Rebecca, I heard what happened with Daniel's house. I want you to know. I don't blame you. He told me what he did. The harassment, the pressure, the showing up at your work. That wasn't okay. You had every right to protect yourself however you needed to. Thank you. That means a lot. I love my brother, but he was wrong, and I think losing the house taught him something important. He's better now, more responsible, less entitled. It was a hard lesson, but maybe a necessary one. How's he doing? Better. He has a stable apartment, a roommate to split costs. He's learned to live within his means, and he's stopped blaming you. That took a while, but he got there. I'm glad he's stable. Are you? Really? I thought about it. Was I glad Daniel was okay? Or did part of me want him to keep struggling as payment for 2 months of hell? Yes. Really. I didn't want him destroyed. I just wanted him to stop pressuring me. If he's learned to manage his finances and take responsibility, that's good. That's what should have happened 2 years ago. You're more gracious than most people would be. I'm boundaried, but I'm not cruel. Daniel's stability doesn't threaten me. I'm fine with him being fine as long as he leaves me alone. He will. He's embarrassed about how he acted. Doesn't want to face you. That's fine too. We don't need to be friends. We just need to be strangers who used to know each other. That seems sad. That seems honest. We were married for 10 years, divorced for 7. The marriage is ancient history. The foreclosure drama is recent history. Neither requires ongoing relationship. We're done, and that's okay. 2.5 years after the auction, my tenant bought a house. I've loved living here, but I'm ready to own. I wanted to let you know I'll be moving out when my lease ends. Congratulations on the house, and thank you for being a great tenant. Would you consider selling this place? I know someone who might be interested. My sister is looking for a house in this neighborhood. Maybe. What's she looking to pay? Market value. Probably around $225. I did the math. I'd bought the house for $150. Put maybe $5,000 into repairs and updates. If I sold for $225, I'd net about $70,000 after selling costs. Plus, I'd collected about $28,000 in rent over 30 months. Almost $100,000 total gain. On a house I'd bought because my ex-husband wouldn't stop harassing me. Tell your sister I'm interested. Let's talk. The sale closed 3 months later. $228,000. $73,000 net profit after costs. Combined with the rental income, I'd made over $100,000. All because Daniel had tried to force me to give him $15,000. All because his pressure had pushed me to find a solution that benefited me. All because I'd refused to be manipulated. I used part of the proceeds to take a vacation. 2 weeks in Italy, first real vacation in years. Ate amazing food. Saw incredible art. Relaxed completely. And I thought about Daniel. About how he'd probably never know I'd sold his house for a massive profit. Never know that his crisis had become my financial windfall. Never know that his worst moment had funded my best vacation. That felt like the ultimate victory. Not that he'd lost, that I'd won. Completely, thoroughly, permanently. 3 years after the auction, I ran into Daniel at a coffee shop. First time seeing him since that brief grocery store encounter. He looked normal. Not broken. Not bitter. Just a guy ordering coffee. He saw me, nodded. Rebecca. Daniel. How have you been? Good. You? Good. Better. Stable. I'm glad. I heard you sold the house. Made good money on it. I did. Worked out well. I'm glad. Sounds like buying it was a good investment for you. It was. Awkward pause. Then, for what it's worth, I really am sorry about how I acted. The pressure, the harassment. That wasn't okay. No, it wasn't. But you've apologized. I've accepted. We're good. Are we? We're not friends. But we're not enemies. We're just 2 people who used to be married and aren't anymore. That's good enough. Yeah, it is. He got his coffee. I got mine. We went separate directions. No drama, no tension. Just 2 strangers with shared history, living separate lives. That evening, I thought about the encounter. About how normal it had been, how undramatic, how final. 3 years ago, Daniel had tried to force me to save him. Had spent 12 weeks making my life hell. Had pushed and pressured and guilted until I'd had no choice but to take extreme action. And now, we could have coffee in the same shop without incident, could exchange pleasantries, could be civil, because the drama was done, the lesson was learned, the consequences had been faced. We'd both moved on. I didn't need him to suffer anymore, didn't need revenge, didn't need vindication. I'd gotten all of that when I bought his house, rented it profitably, and sold it for a massive gain. His pressure had cost him his house, had taught him a hard lesson about boundaries, had shown him what happened when you wouldn't take no for an answer. That was enough. That was victory. Clean, complete, final. 4 years after the auction, present day, I'm 47 years old, living in a nice apartment, financially secure, career thriving, life peaceful. Daniel is 49, living in a modest apartment with a roommate, working steadily, managing his finances better than he did during our marriage, stable. We don't speak, don't interact, don't have reasons to be in each other's lives. And that's perfect. Because this story isn't about maintaining connection with someone who wronged you. It's not about forgiveness leading to renewed friendship. It's not about happy endings where everyone learns and grows together. It's about boundaries, about refusing to be manipulated, about taking action when someone won't respect your no, about protecting yourself even when that protection looks extreme to others. Daniel tried to make his crisis my responsibility. I refused. He escalated. I responded by removing his power completely, by turning his crisis into my opportunity, by showing him that pressure doesn't work. It backfires. That's the lesson. Not just for me. For anyone dealing with financial pressure from family, ex-partners, or friends who think your resources belong to them, you have the right to say no. You have the right to maintain boundaries. You have the right to take dramatic action if someone won't respect those boundaries. And you don't have to feel guilty about it. Don't have to justify it. Don't have to make yourself smaller to accommodate someone else's demands. Daniel wanted $15,000. I spent $150,000 instead, made over $100,000 in profit, and taught him a lesson he'll never forget. Was it extreme? Maybe. Was it necessary? Absolutely. Was it worth it? Every single dollar. 4 years later, I have no regrets. No guilt. No second thoughts. Just satisfaction that I protected myself, that I refused to be manipulated, that I turned someone's pressure into my profit. And if I had to do it again, I'd do exactly the same thing, maybe even faster. Because the biggest mistake you can make with financial manipulators is thinking that giving in will end the pressure. It won't. It'll just teach them that pressure works, that if they push hard enough, you'll cave. I showed Daniel the opposite. That pressure backfires. That pushing too hard breaks things. That trying to force someone to save you can result in them profiting from your loss instead. He learned. It took losing his house. It took years of consequences. It took seeing me profit from what he tried to make me give away for free. But he learned. And that learning has made him a better person, more responsible, more respectful of boundaries, more understanding that other people's money isn't his to demand. Would he have learned without losing the house? Maybe, but probably not. Some lessons require harsh consequences, require rock bottom, require complete loss. Daniel hit that bottom, climbed back up, and is better for it. And me? I'm better for it too. Stronger, more confident in my boundaries, more certain that protecting myself is always the right choice, even when it looks cruel to others. This story could have gone differently. I could have given Daniel the $15,000, could have saved his house, could have been the generous ex-wife who helped despite our divorce, and Daniel would have learned nothing, would have learned that pressuring me works, would probably have come back for more money later, would have seen me as a resource to exploit whenever he needed financial help. I would have taught him that boundaries don't matter, that persistence breaks down resistance, that harassment pays off. Instead, I taught him the opposite. And that lesson, harsh as it was, serves him better than my $15,000 ever could have. My name is Rebecca Morgan. I'm 47 years old. 4 years ago, my ex-husband spent 12 weeks trying to force me to pay $15,000 to save his house. I said no. He wouldn't accept it. So I bought his house at auction for $150,000, rented it, sold it for $228,000, made over $100,000 in profit. He wanted me to save him for free. I saved his house for myself and made a fortune doing it. That's what he didn't expect. That refusing to help didn't mean doing nothing. That I had options he hadn't considered. That his pressure would backfire so completely. 4 years later, he's stable. I'm thriving. We're both better people for how this ended. He learned boundaries matter. I learned I'm capable of protecting myself no matter how hard someone pushes. Share this if you've been financially pressured by an ex or family member. Comment if you've had to take extreme action to stop harassment. Subscribe to Lindsay's Stories for more stories of financial boundaries and perfect consequences. He tried to force me to pay. I made him regret it. And 4 years later, I'm still glad I did. That's everything. There's one more thing I need to say about this experience. Something about the nature of financial pressure that I didn't fully understand until I'd lived through it and come out the other side. Financial pressure isn't just about money. It's about power, control, the belief that your need creates obligation in others. That desperation entitles you to someone else's resources. That your crisis gives you the right to make demands. When Daniel first emailed asking for help, it was a request. A genuine request from someone in a tough situation. I could have helped, maybe should have felt some compassion, but I said no, because I had that right. Because $15,000 was my money, not his. Because being desperate doesn't create obligation in others. And that's when it stopped being about money and started being about power. About whether Daniel could force me to do what I'd declined to do voluntarily. About whether his persistence could break down my boundaries. Every email, every phone call, every workplace visit, every social media post. All of it was Daniel saying, "Your no doesn't matter. I'm going to keep pushing until you say yes." And if I'd given in, if I'd paid the $15,000 just to make the harassment stop, I would have taught him that strategy works, that wearing someone down is effective, that boundaries are negotiable if you push hard enough. That lesson would have been dangerous. Not just for me, I'd have become his ATM forever. But for him, he'd have learned the wrong lesson about how to interact with people, about consent, about boundaries, about respect. By buying his house instead, I taught him a different lesson. A harder lesson, but an important one. Pushing too hard breaks things. Refusing to accept no has consequences. Trying to force someone's hand can result in them taking control completely. That lesson serves him better than my $15,000 ever could have, because now he knows. He knows there are people who won't be pressured, who will protect themselves at any cost. Who will turn your crisis into their opportunity if you push them too far? Does that make me harsh? Maybe. But harshness that teaches is more kind than generosity that enables. And Daniel needed teaching, not enabling. Last month, I got a message from another woman who'd read my story online. It had been shared in a divorce support group. She reached out. "Rebecca, I'm going through something similar. My ex wants me to co-sign a loan so he can keep his business afloat." I said no. He's been calling me for 3 weeks straight, showing up at my house, telling our kids I'm being selfish. I don't know what to do. Did you ever doubt your decision to buy the house? Ever feel guilty? I wrote back. I never doubted the decision, and I only felt guilty when Daniel tried to make me feel guilty, which stopped working once I realized his feelings weren't my responsibility. Here's what you need to understand. His business failing is not your crisis. His inability to get financing on his own is not your problem. His desperation is not your obligation. You said no. That should have been the end of it. The fact that he's still pushing means he doesn't respect your boundaries, which means you need to enforce them. Document everything. Every call, every visit, every attempt to use your kids against you. Build a case, and if necessary, get a restraining order. But most importantly, don't co-sign. Don't give in. Don't let his pressure break your boundaries. Because the moment you do, he'll learn that pressure works. And he'll use it again and again and again. Protect yourself. Protect your finances. Protect your peace. You have that right. She wrote back, "Thank you. I needed to hear that. I've been feeling like maybe I was being unreasonable, like maybe I should help. But you're right. I said no. That should be enough. It is enough. Your no is complete. You don't owe explanation. You don't owe justification. You don't owe guilt. Just no. That's all. What if people think I'm cold? Let them. People who haven't been harassed for weeks don't get to judge how you protect yourself. You know what you're dealing with. Trust yourself." That exchange reminded me why I'd been public about my story. Not for attention, not for validation, but because other people are dealing with similar situations and don't know they have the right to say no. Don't know that financial pressure is a form of abuse. Don't know that protecting yourself is always okay, even when it looks harsh. This morning, 4 years and 2 months after that first email from Daniel, I checked my bank account, saw the balance. Significantly higher than it was 4 years ago, because selling his house had given me capital to invest, to grow, to build more security. Daniel's pressure had made me wealthier, had taught me I could make bold financial moves, had shown me I was capable of protecting myself in ways I hadn't considered before. If he'd never harassed me, I'd never have bought the house, never have made that $100,000 profit, never have learned that lesson about my own strength. So in a strange way, I'm grateful. Not for the harassment itself, that was hell, but for what I learned about myself through it. That I could handle pressure without breaking, that I could make hard decisions, that I could protect myself even when the protection looked extreme. Those lessons are worth more than the money, though the money is nice too. Would I recommend my approach to everyone? No. Buying a house at auction requires capital most people don't have, requires specific circumstances, requires the foreclosure auction being public and accessible. But the principle applies universally. When someone won't respect your no, you escalate your protection, document, set clear boundaries, get legal help if needed, and if necessary, take action that removes their power to pressure you. For me, that was buying the house. For someone else, it might be a restraining order, or changing phone numbers, or moving, or cutting off contact completely. The specific solution matters less than the willingness to protect yourself, to refuse to be worn down, to maintain your boundaries no matter how hard someone pushes. That's the real story here. Not that I bought a house, but that I refused to be manipulated, refused to let someone else's crisis become my obligation, refused to teach him that pressure works. And 4 years later, both of us are better for it. He's learned to manage his finances and respect boundaries. I've learned I'm capable of protecting myself no matter what. That's not revenge. That's growth. Difficult, painful, expensive growth, but growth nonetheless. My name is Rebecca Morgan. I'm 47 years old. 4 years ago, my ex-husband tried to force me to pay $15,000 to save his house. I said no. He harassed me for 12 weeks. So I bought his house at auction for $150,000, rented it, sold it for $228,000, made over $100,000 in profit. He wanted me to save him for free. I saved his house for myself and taught both of us important lessons in the process. He learned, boundaries matter, pressure backfires. Other people's money isn't yours to demand. I learned, I'm stronger than I knew. I'm capable of protecting myself decisively. I don't owe anyone access to my resources, no matter how desperate they are. 4 years later, we're both better people. He respects boundaries now. I defend mine confidently, and we're both living stable, independent lives. Not together, not as friends, but as two people who learned hard lessons and came out better for it. That's the unexpected ending. Not revenge, not destruction, not permanent bitterness. Just two people who faced consequences and grew from them. He tried to force me to pay. I made him regret it. And 4 years later, we're both glad it happened the way it did. Because sometimes the hardest lessons are the most valuable. And sometimes refusing to help is the most helpful thing you can do. Share this if you've been financially pressured by an ex or family member. Comment if you've had to take extreme action to enforce boundaries. Subscribe to Lindsay's Stories for more stories of financial manipulation and empowered responses. He tried to force me. I bought his house instead. And we both learned something worth more than any mortgage payment. That's everything. This morning, as I write this, 4 years and 3 months after Daniel's first email, I'm sitting in my apartment. Coffee on the table, sunlight through the windows, bank account healthy, life peaceful, and I'm thinking about that moment. That Sunday morning when I opened the email, when I first read, I need you to cover the payments. It's only $15,000. If past me could see present me, what would I tell her? What advice would I give that woman facing 12 weeks of hell? I'd tell her, trust your no, trust your instincts. Trust that protecting yourself is always the right choice, even when everyone questions it. I'd tell her, document everything. every email, every call, every workplace visit. Because you'll need that documentation, because protection requires evidence. I'd tell her, don't engage with guilt. Don't defend your no. Don't explain or justify. Just maintain the boundary and let him exhaust himself against it. And most importantly, I'd tell her, you're stronger than you know. You're capable of making bold moves. You can handle what's coming, and you'll come out the other side not just okay, but better, wealthier, more confident, more certain of your worth. Past me wouldn't have believed it. Wouldn't have believed she could buy a house to solve the problem. Wouldn't have believed she'd make over $100,000 from it. Wouldn't have believed she'd end up grateful for the experience. But present me knows all of that is true. Knows that Daniel's pressure, while awful, taught me things I needed to learn. About boundaries, about strength, about protecting myself decisively. Would I choose to go through it again? No. It was horrible. Stressful. Exhausting. Frightening at times. But would I change how I handled it? Also no. Because buying that house was exactly the right move. Protected me completely. Taught Daniel definitively. And profited me significantly. Sometimes the right choice is also the hard choice. The extreme choice. The choice that makes people uncomfortable. And you have to be okay with that. Have to trust yourself even when others don't understand. That's the final lesson. The one that took 4 years to fully learn. Trust yourself, especially when you're being pressured. Especially when someone is trying to make you doubt your boundaries. Especially when taking care of yourself looks harsh to others. Your no is enough. Your boundaries are valid. Your financial resources are yours. And protecting all of that, however you need to, is always okay. 4 years later, I know that now. Know it deeply. Know it certainly. Know it in a way I didn't before Daniel tried to force me to pay his mortgage. He wanted $15,000. He got a $100,000 lesson instead. We both did. And somehow, impossibly, we're both better for it. That's everything. My name is Rebecca Morgan. My ex-husband tried to force me to pay $15,000 to save his house. I spent $150,000 to buy it instead, made over $100,000 in profit, and taught us both lessons worth more than any mortgage. He wanted me to save him. I saved myself. And 4 years later, I'd do it exactly the same way. Share, comment, subscribe, and remember, your no is always enough, even when someone tries to force you to change it. That's everything. He tried to force me to pay the overdue payments on his house. I bought his house instead, made it profitable, sold it for massive gain, and never looked back. 4 years later, I'm thriving. He's stable. We're both wiser, and boundaries were the teacher. That's everything.